Beautiful day, beautiful people. It's Shanita. I hope y'all are doing well on this marvelous Monday morning. I am here with a Memphis market update for the week of March 7th through March 13th. As always, I will not be covering the entire metro area, just a few areas to give a snapshot of what's going on in the Memphis market. As always, I will be reading the information, the data, because I want to make certain that I'm providing you with accurate information and so that I stay on track. This information is again for the last week, March 7th through March 13th. All right, so let's get started. So looking at Shelby County overall, there were 143 active listings last week. On the low end was 14,900. On the high end was 1,975,000. 227 properties sold in Shelby County last week. The low end was 8,500. On the high end was 840,000. The average days on market throughout Shelby County was about 35 days. Moving on to Arlington, there were 5 active listings in Arlington last week. The low end was 254,900. On the high end, 525,000. 23 properties sold in Arlington last week. The low end was 230,000. The high end was 540,000. The average days on market for the properties that sold last week in Arlington was 39 days. Moving on to Bartlett, there were 5 active listings in Bartlett last week. The low end was 99,000. The high end was 325,000. 25 properties sold in Bartlett last week. The low end was $80,000. On the high end, $580,000. The average days on market last week was about 18 days. Moving on to Collierville. So there were 15 active listings in Collierville last week. The low end was 295,900. The high end was 775,000. 16 properties sold in Collierville last week. The low end was 362,000. The high end was 795,000. The average days on market was about 33 days. Moving on to Cordova. There were 7 active listings last week in Cordova. The low end was 186,000. On the high end, 449,000. 22 properties sold in Cordova last week. The low end was 110,000. The high end, 609,000. The average days on market in Cordova last week was about 21 days. Looking at East Memphis, we're looking at the zip codes 38117, 38119, and 38120. There were 16 active properties in East Memphis last week. The low end was 62,000. The high end was 1,975,000. 20 properties sold in East Memphis last week. The low end was 83,500. The high end was 586,000. The average days on market in East Memphis last week was about 14 days. In Germantown, there were 8 active listings in Germantown. The low end was 200,000. The high end was 1.6 million. 10 properties sold in Germantown last week. The low end, 220,000. The high end, 765,000. The average days on market for the property sold last week in Germantown was about 67 days. Looking at Southeast Memphis, the zip codes 38141 and 38125. There were 4 active listings in Southeast Memphis last week. 136,500 on the low end. The high end was 699,000. 15 properties sold in Southeast Memphis last week. The low end was 80,000. The high end was 590,000. And the average days on market for Southeast Memphis, the properties that sold, was 29 days. This is just a snapshot of some of the areas in the Memphis Metro. If there's a particular zip code, neighborhood, a town that you want more information about, feel free to leave a comment below and I can provide you with that information. One other thing, I want to briefly go over the interest rates that we saw last week. These are average interest rates throughout the nation, and it's what we saw last week. So for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, the average was about 3%, 3.05% to be exact. For a 15-year fixed rate mortgage, the average was 2.38%. And for a 5-year adjustable rate mortgage, the average was 2.77%. Again, these are the average interest rates that we saw nationwide. The interest rate that you may qualify for as a buyer, or even if you're selling your home and want to purchase another, or if you want to refinance your current home, will all depend on your financial picture. But these are just the averages. Interest rates are still fairly low if you're looking to purchase or refinance, but you definitely want to get with a lender so that you can be provided with a number based on your financial picture. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them below, or questions, feel free to leave them below. I would love if you would share this information with someone, and I hope it's been helpful. So you have a fantastic Monday and a productive week. Be blessed.